So we're recording on YouTube.
No, Zoom.
We're recording on Zoom tonight.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
I didn't know we were doing that yet. I told people on Facebook we weren't doing that yet. I didn't.
It's not a live feed streaming. It's
Oh, okay.
It's just recording.
Just
and then,
internal, and then it'll be, okay, it'll
and then it
be,
goes to the website.
okay. I've had a couple people say that they're upset that there isn't a live feed. There will be here, right? There will be live feeding Zoom eventually, right?
We can be.
A lot of people are upset that we're not live feeding. Well, okay. Some people.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. We're going to go ahead and start. We're going to bring this meeting of February 7th, 2023 to order.
I think if you would like, we do the oath of office first, so then we can have.
Okay, we can.
Councilor Stanford can be part of roll call and be in on the meeting.
There you go.
Yeah.
Sherry, you want to come forward?
Last time we did the flag first. You want to do the flag after?
Yeah, we'll do that. He wants to put her, no, Sherry, come forward. Raise your right hand. I, Sherry Stanford,
I, Sherry Stanford,
solemnly swear that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States of America.
I solemnly swear
That I will support
that I will support
and defend the Constitution
and defend the Constitution
of the United States of America,
of the United States of America,
the Constitution and laws of the state of Oregon,
the Constitution and laws of the state of Oregon,
the charter and ordinances of the city of Gold Hill,
the charter and ordinances of the city of Gold Hill,
and I will faithfully discharge my duties of the position of council member.
and I will faithfully what? Discharge
My duties
my duties
of the position
of the position
of council member
of council
for the city of Gold
for
Hill,
the city of Gold Hill,
to which I have been elected.
for which I have been elected.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Now I go up there?
Yes.
Now you're official.
I would say.
Roll call.
Councilor Bichai. Here. Martin. Here. Councilor Husted.
Here.
Mayor Palmer.
Here.
Councilor Rigby.
Here.
Councilor Stanford.
Here.
And Councilor Russell. Here.
Please stand for the pledge of allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, well, I want to thank everybody for showing up tonight. Any agenda adjustments?
Okay, I'm going to see recorder and city manager duty this meeting, so I'm handling both as he's out of town. Only adjustment is just an addition that I want to talk about at the city manager report section of the meeting, just an item that wasn't in the report that I want to talk to the council about. But other than that, no other adjustments.
Okay, announcements for correspondence, awards, and proclamations. None?
None.
Okay, public input.
We have two speakers.
No, just one. I thought that was a sign.
Oh, okay. All right. Shane.
I signed in.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, me.
Shane Ross.
Hello, City Council of Gold Hill, hello, Mayor. I apologize if this gets wordy. I just wanted to make a public introduction of Rocket Ferry. My name is Shane Ross. I live at 7761 Colonial Way. It's technically Central Point, but I identify as a Goldillion. It was 2 years ago this month that I set out on a mission to write new desires, the necessary means for musical expression. And that mission developed as a calling for people to donate instruments to provide them to families and kids who otherwise couldn't afford instruments. On one side, we were making sure that people had access to music. On the other side, we're making sure that instruments had access to creating joy. Throughout that year, we culminated enough instruments that we outgrew the space that we had in Medford. It was the back of Tom's Guitars. I remember a year ago in January thinking, what a great problem to solve. We have too many instruments. We ended up opening a library in downtown Medford called Rocket Ferry Hall. It was a 3,800 square foot building where we hosted a gallery, a recording studio, practice space, a full library of gear. And we opened it to the public, invited the public in not only to participate in creating music and learning an instrument, but also invited the public to be a part of Rocket Ferry's evolution. During that time, it became an art studio. It became a congregation space for artists and bands. It became a place that people could find a home who resonated with music and wanted a place to go. We served for a period of time the houseless community. Of that community, a number of people got clean and came back to celebrate their sobriety and worked with us to volunteer. We found kids who were running away from home, then found a place on Rocket Ferry to no longer be running away from home, but be developing themselves as artists in a place for their parents who they were. We found young kids who were in high school looking to form bands and practicing and getting to the point where not only did they have 30 minutes, 1 hour of content, they were now ready to gig and going on tour. We also gave the pro bands a place to practice that wasn't in a garage, wasn't an apartment complex, it wasn't in a bar. We also gave them a place to play. One thing we realized was we can cultivate artists, but if there's an ecosystem of venues that doesn't give them family-friendly places or places that don't condone bad habits or don't enable bad habits, then the artists that we're growing aren't going to really grow. So we set out in our network of artists to find the venues and connected with venues and connected with theaters, community centers, schools, and started talking to them, having a real conversation about, hey, can we rock out here? Can we build you a stage? Can we promote open mics? Can we promote all ages shows? And it grew. It became a beautiful thing. Now, the elephant in the room is what paid for this. It was my savings. I saved up I worked in tech for 10 years, and as Rocket Ferry was growing, it became abundantly clear that Rocket Ferry was a full-time job. So I bravely and somewhat naively left my tech career so I could focus on growing Rocket Ferry. And in that time, I've got to say, we've actually captured something magical. I can no longer pay for it myself, which is something that I didn't necessarily want to share here as far as I need anything, but the idea that the essence of Rocket Ferry needs to come from public support. Not only that, I would like to identify that Rocket Ferry has the ability to grow communities through music, not just for artists, but for kids, communities, and patrons alike.
My bad. Normally when the public speaks, you have 5 minutes. So is there a question somewhere in there?
Rocket Ferry would like to do the entertainment for Built This Day. Rocket Ferry would also seek the permits for amplified sound outside on a routine basis to do a pop-up library in Gold Hill. Also, we're seeking a building to do our new headquarters there.
I can put you in touch with Can Do. In fact, there's 2 constituents right back there that you can talk to for that. Anyway, just remember that next time. I remember you were in here last time, so 5 minutes is all you get.
Gotcha.
3?
That's fine.
Is it fine?
It's 5. I'm sorry. Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. Oh, wait, one last thing. You can put me in touch with Can Do, but also I've got a number of projects. So if you guys want to have a meeting as a council and I have my team involved, we can go through all the projects that we have in line and see if any of them serve the goals of the mission.
You'll have to talk with the city manager.
Sounds good.
Can do might want to coordinate you with them on those things too.
Great, thank you.
Well done. Okay. Public hearings. Consent agenda.
No, I think maybe this is a good slot to mention that we are working on catching up on minutes and getting the system, regular system in place. We, as I gave my email report to you all, we did add some staffing. So that will free up Dee to do more of the city reporter hat rather than both of us kind of sharing the city clerk hat and each trying to do other positions as well. So we're really committed to catching those up and getting them done. We've, with her being out and a new staff person coming in and training them up, we didn't catch up as quick as we planned. So that's still just want to let council know that we know those are important and we are working on catching them up. I think she has several draft documents already that just didn't get into this packet, but we will see multiple minutes in the coming meetings to get caught up.
Number 7, action items. So the first one on that is request for declaration of Gold Dust Day Heritage Celebration and approval for associated streets.
Yeah, I'll just give a quick summary. This was a request that came through to me to put on an agenda for you to formally make a declaration that you kind of sponsor, in one sense, the Gold Dust Day Heritage Celebration, which is June 3rd this year, and the other, and that's a can-do project, and the other component of that is approval for street closures. Not certain historically if council has been the body that has approved street closures always, and prior world that was done administratively, but I wanted to put that in there just in case if that was a usual council thing. And then also coordination with the Can Do volunteer team for utilization of city signage to ensure that the street closures, if you all approve, are obviously safely done and legally done. And so it would be a combination of coordinating our staff, making sure that they have the right signs available, but the Can Do volunteer team would be responsible for putting them up, taking them down, and getting them back. So we're basically checking it out to the group after we look at and approve, what streets are closed and what signage would be needed to safely reroute traffic.
Okay, so we need that information before we make a motion on that, right? Is that what I'm hearing?
No, I didn't think so. If you want to, you can. What I was hopeful for is that you, as a body, make a motion to kind of declare the Heritage Celebration Day, and then to authorize city manager to coordinate with Can Do on street closures and associated signs.
Councilors?
I recall that's what we've done in the past.
What was that?
I recall that's how we did it last year. That we approved it as city council rather than administrative.
Well, good, that's what we're doing. We're
Right.
approving to give him the power to.
Right.
Okay, yeah.
I'm just saying that's how we've done it in the past.
Yeah, I don't have anything to say. I think Gold Dust Days is one of the most important events of Gold Hill every year. And I would love to make the motion. No discussion needed.
Okay.
I move to declare June 3rd, 2023 as Gold Hill Gold Dust Day Heritage Celebration Day and approve the associated street closure requests. Second.
Okay. Any discussion on that?
You want to go roll call?
Yes, roll call, please.
Roll call vote. Councilor Bichette?
Yes.
Councilor Martin?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Councilor Newstead?
Yes.
Councilor Rigby?
Yes.
Councilor Stampa?
Yes.
Councilor Wilson?
Yes.
6-2.
All right, action item 2, Gold Valley Little League sponsorship.
This one, I'll just give a quick intro on this. We received this in the mail. I understand this to be an annual request from Gold Valley Little League Group for the city council to provide some level of sponsorship for their season. Second page of this has kind of an informational front, and the back of it has the different levels of sponsorship packages. $100, $400, or $600. My understanding from looking at prior year information, at least 1 year, the council had approved a $400 level before. So that's just a council discretion of sponsoring that group. Of course, they use the sports work. Season.
How well are they taking care of the ballpark over there?
I don't have real good history on that. I think they, they don't use that one field. They use the fields upslope fields. I don't know that they were not taking
They just had two-day work group this last weekend. I didn't see it personally, but it's on Facebook. Is there anybody here in the audience from, oh, there's, so maybe you could speak about what,
Sure, if you'd like. Sure, yeah. Would you come on up? Council Mayor, my name is Brian Hallen. I am on the board for the Gold Power. So whatever questions you want, I'm happy to answer.
why don't you tell us about the cleanup this past week?
Yeah, so the fields got cleaned up. We actually have just finished up today for the most part of mowing as well as fixing anything that's broken. The infields were all tilled as well as all the warning tracks. They're all been de-weeded and we've been de-weeding all around the outside of the fields. The other thing to note is the snack shack was in very bad disrepair. So the floor was rotted as well as a bunch of walls were rotted out. So that's being repaired as well. We got a generous donation from a company who's donated all the materials for that. Awesome.
Great.
So that's great.
Yeah. What about the fence that was knocked down?
That's been repaired.
Has it?
Yeah.
That's good.
I noticed there's some graffiti on the Snapchat.
It's actually on, yeah, it's on a building on a softball field. Yeah, that happened last year as well. So
Yeah.
we'll get that painted as soon as the weather gets warmer. Yeah,
Awesome.
yeah,
Great.
because there's some unfortunate graffiti on there.
I thought so too.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's great. I'm really glad you guys are doing all that.
Yeah.
Glad that kids have an opportunity.
Yeah, and we've got some actually really amazing generous donations from the community. I'd like to mention the Gold Hill gas station gives $1,000 just to put towards the field. So really, really awesome. So the community at large. I went out to every business and they've just been fantastic about helping us out. Because for 2 years, it didn't get ran because of COVID and yet bills were still being paid. So their bank account is very low. So, but I think we're having a good season. We have about 78 kids signed up this year so far. And we still have this weekend, hopefully we get more.
Nice.
Well, that graffiti, is that an ongoing thing?
Yeah.
What, should we put up some cameras in?
It would be nice. I actually have a bunch, but the problem is I don't have internet access out there on those fields.
And the
So,
cameras will probably end up damaged too.
and yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Because I know right next door, they had some damage done to one of their vehicles. Someone cut out the caterpillar. So I mean, there's just, of course, vandals. It's happening. And they do have cameras on the building, but I don't know if they're working or not. So it's on the water treatment.
On the
Yeah,
water
facility, yeah.
city facility, we do
Yeah.
have.
Yes, yeah. So anyway, but yeah, it would be nice if we could do some sort of a surveillance, but I spent 14 years in law enforcement. I can tell you that's just not a good cure all because, yeah, and it's hard to, even when you see it, it's hard to identify. So, yeah, exactly. So, I mean, it's great, but it's not a cure all.
So I read through it earlier. What would the donation go towards?
So it goes towards everything, but it's primarily, it's 100% volunteer. So like myself, it's all my time. So it goes towards equipment for the kids. It goes towards the electric bill, water bill. It goes towards, we have to pay like Little League. We're a charter of them, so we have to pay them. We have to pay insurance. We have to pay for the porta potties. We pay for the trash cans. So all the bills out there, which come about between 10 to 12,000 a year that we pay. So it's a lot more than I thought, but I have written out 2 foundational grants, which luckily for me, I know the people that have the foundation, so I'm hoping I'll be able to get some of that. But because of that, I had to actually go through all the finances and figure out how much this actually costs. And last year it's like a little over $10,000.
I was a Little League coach over a decade ago, so I know.
So we
it's
need
like,
more. So
There's a lot of behind the scenes, never again.
And there is a lot of
politics. It's not the kids.
Well, luckily here, because we're very small, the politics are, but the Little League politics are
Right,
unfortunate.
been there.
Yeah. In fact, I believe Grants Pass has left Little League because of that. So, which is a shame for us because we play them and now we don't get to. But anyway, so that's where the money goes towards the operation costs and to take care of the fields and all that. Thank you, man. Thank you. Anything else?
Just want to get your name again for the.
Yeah, so it's Brian with an I, Last name is Hallin.
Great, thanks.
Great, thanks.
I move to approve sponsorship of the 2023 Gold Valley Little League season, which is a donation of $400.
Second. All right. Roll call.
Council Bichette.
Yes.
Council Martin.
Yes.
Council Bichette.
Yes.
Council Ricky.
Yes.
Council Stanley.
Yes.
Council Wilson.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Good job. Action item 3, direction for city manager to develop unified fee schedule.
Yeah, I'll give a little summary. I'll try not to go through verbatim through the council communication, but the concept with the unified fee schedule is in trying to determine what we're charging for different things as things pop into City Hall and being somewhat fresh, although I'm maybe 4 months in now, 3 or 4 months in. Coming to find documentation that I'm not certain about the fees, about what resolution they were approved under. Was it all of that? Was the previous stuff actually repealed? Just a lot of uncertainty about the fees in general, coupled with just an efficiency of having a unified fee schedule means every year you can bring the whole schedule forward. You don't necessarily update or change every fee in it, but it gives you really good efficiency of saying, okay, here's the whole list of the city's fees for parks, for utilities, for planning and building, for SDCs, all of those things are all in one spot. And so when you do a resolution to update any fees, then you can specifically in the resolution repeal the prior. And so you always know you've got a current set working with them, whether you change them or not, they are currently set. A couple things that I called out in the council staff report. A couple concerns that I wanted to dig into further on the system development charges, the SDCs. The notes that I see concern me about the methodology, how the methodology is used. There's looks to be a mixture between what SDCs are for, which is paying into the future growth that you're impacting on the system, compared with actually connecting to the system. Those are two separate things. And SDCs system development charges are very specifically regulated by order or by statute. So I just would like to kind of review those and clean those up. It doesn't mean they're necessarily being raised or lowered or anything, unless we come up with a methodology problem isn't consistent with ORS, then I'd be bringing all this back. All of this will come back. This is just a request to make sure that you're good with me going forward with this. So no fee changes are happening tonight at all. It's just a motion to having developed this and bring back a resolution that has all this. The zoning and land use fees that we have are not keeping pace with the costs that we have for our contract land use services. So typically you want to have your fee schedule to at least break even with the costs associated with providing development services for the building and development community. So I'd like to look at those and bring back proposed fee adjustments for those to at least keep pace with our contract land use services, so we don't have a subsidy situation. Utility rates, I think when I bring it back, I want to embed them in this unified fee schedule. I think that's a deeper conversation as we get into the wastewater plant future funding financing. So I don't know that we'll have immediate recommendations for fee increases in water and wastewater, because we need to know a little bit more about our infrastructure, our capital planning, and that'll come through the budget process. So those will just probably slide over. We'll just make sure that they're legit, that we don't have any worries that they weren't approved properly in the past. We'll embed them there, and maybe talking about some advanced surcharging to be ready to start collecting, to be ready for larger rate increases later as a result of the infrastructure conversations. But that one will take a little more, probably a study session, to really talk about utility rates rather than just having them show up in a resolution. And then lastly, I put several fees in here. I've talked with some of you about individually. And again, this is as we get towards budget. to enable us to keep pace and provide the kind of equal level of services generally for what we provide in the community. We're going to need some more revenue. And it's a tough conversation always to be looking at revenue. But the costs of providing those services continue to rise, the direct and indirect costs. So I put two different fees out there for consideration, and this is just to get the conversation ball rolling. It's again, something that we can talk about when the resolution formally comes up. But a parks and public facilities fee, we are, I think, falling behind in our repair and maintenance schedules for this building, both on some of the technology and really some of the core infrastructure, the roof, paint, and then there isn't really any dedicated funding to deal with public facilities. This and the shop building needs some work, exterior and interior. And so we'll be putting together kind of a mini capital plan for public facilities, and this fee would assist. It wouldn't cover it, but it would assist in funding that. As well on the park side, Parks Advisory Committee, when I mentioned this fee to them, they were very interested in, and I think they voiced that to council prior, in not charging general parking fees at the sports park. My recommendation, I would agree with that, the cost of running a parking program outweighs the revenue that we get there. And we've had troubles even getting that stuff from the sports park to City Hall. The money doesn't make it here. Unfortunately, we've been spending a lot of money just trying to fortify the collection system that's still not working well. So coming back would be a recommendation to actually remove the parking fees there. The boat ramp is a little bit different. So I think there's a different conversation there, the boat ramp and general parking. But this fee then would replace that. And these fees are a fee placed on the utility bill, similar to our storm drain fee that we have currently. It's a $3 flat fee that goes to the storm drain infrastructure system only. These would be like that. They would be limited in the resolution. The language would be that what it's limited to be used for, so it couldn't be used for general government. They have parameters. So that's the parks and public facilities fee. And there's some estimates depending upon what level of rate fee you want to charge. I'll give you estimates on what that converts to in annual revenue to help make those decisions. The second utility fee suggestion is some cities call it a street user fee, some cities call it a transportation fee. Same thing, a fixed dollar amount on utility bills. And that one is dedicated to our street system. Signs, which we have to replace on a regular cycle for the reflectivity requirements, striping, downtown parking, potholes in between our street overlays. This isn't for capital, it's for operations and maintenance. And that is a separate fund. Our street fund is separate from the general fund. So it would be a revenue stream dedicated to that fund as well. So again, no decisions tonight. This is a request to just lay this out in front of you. What I've seen, what I found is as I'm digging in further and getting ready for the budget preparation for you, but it's to bring back in a future meeting relatively soon, unified fee schedule and more discussion about these kind of substantial changes proposed. And attached is kind of a sampling of what we have to work with in terms of existing fee schedules that are challenging to rely on.
Any questions?
I think it's a great idea. This is something we've been struggling with for as long as I've been involved here, but never knowing what fees were or the boat ramp money, the whole thing. So I think it's a great idea.
I read through it a couple times and all I read is progress. I see that and it's going to be a good thing.
So you don't want a motion tonight?
I put a motion in there just to formalize and give direction to do that. I'm trying to, what I'm really looking at and making sure that I'm in alignment with you all is we've got a discrete amount of time. I'm trying to make sure that I'm bringing you and getting direction from you to sort of word agreement about what are the high priority items to work on. There are some that clearly don't make the cut. We don't even have to talk about them, but there are some where I want to make sure you don't think that they're in that top tier of things for me to be working on, that we drop those down and work on other things because there are plenty of things. But I do believe this one, my recommendation is it's really important from a legal standpoint an organizational standpoint and also a budget and financial standpoint.
I move to direct the city manager to develop a unified fee schedule for council review and deliberation at a future council meeting prior to the presentation of the proposed fiscal year 23-24 budget.
Second. Discussion.
Roll call. Councilor Bishop,
Yes.
Councilor Martin,
Yes.
Councilor Newstead,
Oh, yes.
Councilor Whitney,
Yes.
Councilor Stankler,
Yes.
and Councilor Wilson.
Yes.
All right. So, thank you.
Action item 4, council direction, to city manager to update utility billing and collections policy.
This is a similar situation as we jumped in and tried to catch up and get our heads wrapped around the utility billing process. You know, in comparing that, the process here to prior processes I've been involved with in other jurisdictions, I found some things that I wanted to at least notate and bring forward to you to see if you're interested in modifying. We've actually done some of them out of necessity, but they haven't been talked about, I don't think, very cleanly and openly to council, and I want to make sure of that. And what really kind of solidified me to come forward with this is I found this document that I've included in your packet. It's not dated, and I don't know if it had been ever in front of council before. I don't, you know, we're consistent right now operationally with the municipal code, but that's different than how it was operating when I got here. So I made sure that nothing that I had changed is inconsistent with the code, but it is inconsistent with the practice when I first got here. And it's not quite, neither practices are quite consistent with this document. And again, I don't know if this was an internal document or if it had been put through council at all. So this is another one of kind of procedural policy cleanup and getting us all on the same page. So it's the same thing, the motion of, you know, I'd love any comments, and then that you have on it, and then kind of, you know, a motion for directness and kind of an agreement that it's a high enough priority item that we're coming up in the coming month or two.
I move to direct the city manager to update the utility billing and collections policies and procedures and present back to council for review and deliberations at future council business meeting.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call.
Councilor Bishop,
Yes.
Councilor Martin,
Yes.
Councilor Newstead,
Yes.
Councilor Whitney,
Yes.
Councilor Stankler,
Yes.
and Councilor Wilson.
Yes.
Action item 5, council direction to update city personnel policies and procedure manual.
Well, this is another, we're on a roll, same sort of thing. This is, there is a document, I just included the, just the cover page, or the table of contents actually, and it has a handwritten note that was adopted in 2007. It looks decent, and it looks like what we've probably been using as the guidepost. Again, I'm not positive, I haven't seen the resolution that actually formally adopted it. Not to say that it didn't occur. But there are quite a few changes in the world of HR and personnel since 2007. So some of that is working with RDCOG and League Board of Cities. There's some model stuff out there. So it's not reinventing the wheel from scratch us as a group, but there are some pieces that are probably going to be unique to this jurisdiction. And I think, you know, people and money are kind of the two big hitters of any organization. So I think this one rises to that level of making sure that what we're doing, you know, the work environment that we have, making sure that we have the protections for employees, and that we have rules and policies in place that we can properly manage employees. So both sides of that. What I added is some of the, I see one of my bullets did not get finished, remove and blank. So there's new legal requirements that just should be in here, and we're bound by them anyway. We should have them in our own manuals. And again, I want it to be council reviewed and approved. I don't want to have stuff that we're utilizing that hasn't been seen and approved by council. And there's a couple of specifics on compensation. I think, recruiting and retention of employees is a challenge in any city, big or small, right now especially. And the wages paid here are not super competitive with the region. They're not bad at all, but they're not super competitive. So I think a minor way to help offset that are some of the non-wage compensation components that can be offered. So I listed there's some inconsistency. We have two kind of categories of employees. We have appointed people like me, Dee, and we have just regular staff. So there's this appointment thing that's kind of guided by the charter and the code, and then there are several positions that are. And somehow the handbook and what has been done in the past, we've applied compensation, the non-wage compensation differently to them. It's legal, but it seems like with such a small group, making those the same and consistent amongst the 4.5 FTE would make sense, and it makes things a little bit easier operationally from a financial and management side, but it also gives a slight notch up to the two lowest positions that we have on both the health insurance potential and on how the employee side of the PERS payments are handled. And so again, this is one to provide direction. I'll come back and we can talk about the specifics of each of those and what the cost implications are to the city for kind of bumping up the two lower positions on the, again, non-wage. We're not talking about salaries and wages here at all, because those aren't, I don't think we're ready to talk about that. But so that's, again, same concept as the prior items that we're talking about, is just making sure that we have them out and open. We're talking about them and we agree on the final product and we get it approved by council.
Okay, I need a motion.
I move to direct the city manager to update the city's policies and procedures manual and present it to the council at a future presentation.
Second. Roll call. Oh, excuse me, discussion.
I just have a question. So we currently, do we have a PTO system, or do staff have a certain number of sick days, or?
So the way it's currently in the handbook, there are two different accrual rates. There's a sick bank accrual rate, and then that one is standard for no matter for all positions. Then on the vacation, there is a tiered, 1 to 2 years, 3 to 5. There's quite a bit more of a breakdown. I think it's split up more than it needs to be. I would probably shrink that and make the ranges different. And then the other piece of that is taking those two banks and just merging them as just PTO and not differentiating sick and vacation. That is more and more common. The way this contract or this agreement is that sick is paid out at the end. Where you wouldn't want to do that is where you have a vacation payout, but you don't do sick payout. If you merge those, then you have no way of knowing what is vacation payout and what is sick. The way the current policy is written, sick and vacation are paid out to the employees. So merging them would make sense unless you want to.
I have a quick question then. So this was adopted in 2007.
Go back up.
That's
I've heard that it was never adopted.
But
that's
laws have changed for sick time since
Right.
then. So are we updating that for our employees? Okay.
yes, yeah, all of that. There's quite a bit of stuff that's favorable to the employee that they're mandated sick, and there's a lot of definitions that are different, and it lends itself to just PTO because the definition of sick is different than it used to be, and there's some outdated stuff clearly in here.
So we got a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
All right, Councilor Rishai,
Yes.
Councilor Martin.
Yeah.
Councilor Youssef,
Yes.
Councilor Rigby,
Yes.
Councilor Stanford,
Yes.
and Councilor Wilson.
Yes.
Right. Item 8, reports from council. Do you have any?
I just gotta say, I had a great time going to the mixer down at the Central Point City Hall. That was a blast. That was a lot of fun. Yeah, knowledgeable, got to hear what's going on with RV Cog, got to learn a lot more about them. Meet other newly elected officials throughout the area. I mean, it was an awesome time, really was, learned a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, we had the 2 counselors with me. I had the Ricky Martin.
Yeah.
And I had James with me, so it was pretty knowledgeable. So anyway, we have some more coming up the 23rd. It's at the Metro Country Club. So anybody would like to go to that. And I do recommend it for the counselors. But I'm gonna go. And it's a breakfast this time.
That one is the So Ready, I believe that one, and that the regional economist guy, Guy Tower is there, giving kind of a state of the economy. He's great. He's worth listening to about some of the localized stuff and how it compares to state and national.
What is that?
I think it's we had to go by the 23rd of February.
Yeah,
Yes.
that one is if we, I think we have 2 complimentary, and then
Right.
the rest of them are fee, but we can,
Right.
you know, if we want to have more go, we definitely can. We had 2 that already, we've got registered now. Maybe just
I asked Jen.
email me, you know, then we can coordinate all that.
Okay.
Take up the 2 that are covered there, and we'll.
We don't have public input at this time. Okay. So anyway,
So if others want to go, send me an email and we'll get that coordinated too.
all right, city manager report.
I
Oh. Oh, I'm sorry.
So I have a couple things, actually 3. So at the last meeting, we transferred the DEQ liaison role to Councilor Wilson. But the very next day, we had the hearing on the fine, the penalty, and Councilor Wilson wasn't able to go, so I went. So I just want to report on that. They asked us to try to justify why we were delinquent in sorry, brain thing here. Why we, asked us to justify why we didn't renew somebody help me out. Not the contract, the MAO. Thank you very much. Wow, should rehearse that. Okay, and so we pleaded, we said COVID and staff turnover and all of those kinds of things. And they basically said, oh, we'll think it over and we'll get back to you. But they also said that, and I can't remember if the percentage was 75 or 80%, 80%. There are ways that the fine, which was $6,000, we could be able to apply up to 80% of that towards something here in the city that would be beneficial to the environment. And that could be an improvement to the current wastewater plant or other, or some of the other options.
Yeah, the most straightforward was potentially lab/testing equipment that would transfer over. We obviously don't want to put something in the plant when we're going to replace the plant, but things like that qualify that then when you build a new plant, the lab testing equipment would move over, so you wouldn't be wasting that. So it's a good alternative, and it specifically is only allowed for really small communities like that step. If it's a bigger city, you got to find, they don't get that opportunity. So it's really an acknowledgement from DEQ that these things are more impactful to smaller communities. But it ended up being a bit of a pre-hearing. It wasn't a formal administrative hearing with the magistrate kind of thing, the hearings officer, which we weren't sure, but we stepped in, we thought it was a hearing. but it was really good that it wasn't. We had a really good conversational opportunity, and they understood why we were ailing and kind of negotiate.
So pass the baton back to you for any further activity on that. The MRMPO meeting on January 19th, I found out that this isn't exactly Gold Hill, but it is the neighborhood. The bridge over Gulls Creek on Lampman Road is going to be replaced within 3 or 4 years. That's a really narrow, really insufficient bridge. bridge. And they said that they would be repurposing it somewhere here in Jackson County. So I said that it would really be great. It's a historic, because it is a historic bridge, it has something to do with the Applegate Trail, I believe. It's a historic bridge. They
The
want,
timbers, right? There's some really big, long timbers there. Right?
yeah, there's also metal. It's also metal struts. But anyway, they want to repurpose it. And so I said, it would really, they said somewhere here in Jackson County. And I said, since it's historic to Gold Hill, it'd be really great if we could keep it here in Gold Hill. So, it might be able to be used as a footbridge, say over the canal or something, just, I don't know, might work in with the powerhouse plant at some plan of rejuvenating that area at some point. But anyway, I advocated for trying to keep that bridge in Gold Hill.
That was a perfect time to do it too.
Yeah.
I think I think they didn't like it all.
Yeah.
I think it was really good. Steve Lambert, Jackson County Roads and Parks was,
Mhm.
I thought, very attentive to that idea. So
Yeah.
that was really good.
Powerhouse project is moving along really slowly. We thought we were going to get the engineering report in January, and now they're saying late April, so the latest. So,
Yeah, we got the,
first we thought we'd get them in September, and then they said January, and then we're pushing it out to April. So,
I got the scope of work that they have, and it shows their benchmarks, their time. Yeah, they've definitely been slow.
all there is on that.
Anybody else? So, city manager report.
I probably already did a little spoiler alert on this one, but first was the staffing update. As you know, early October, I think week 2 when I got here, the city clerk resigned with a notice. So we held off because we were a little bit in chaos ourselves. We had been there about a month and change, and I've been there a week or so. So rather than try and train someone, we were in the process of training ourselves, we went without, and I think it ended up being a really good move to go without, because Dee and I were able to learn and understand it. And some of the results of that are showing up in the stuff that I was really asking for direction from today. It's harder to know that stuff. Not all the way in it. We were all the way in every little bit of it. That was about 4 months, so we had some budget savings for that, that we'll hopefully utilize on catching up some of our financials with our auditors and the payroll specialists that we have. Just slide them out. But we ended up having 3 different people we didn't formally announce the job opening. We had 3 different people over a course of time say they're interested, provide us some information. Being out for several weeks necessitated in either temp staffing or bringing somebody on, and this worked out really well to bring a part-time person on. So filling the city clerk role to some degree, we will be kind of re-looking at what's the right task division between city recorder and city clerk as we get her trained up. But Carrie Lewis started on the 30th, and so it's she and I for these 2 weeks, but we had a week of overlap where Dee was here, all 3 of us. So I'm excited for that, and I think I mentioned it earlier. I think that allows the opportunity to slowly get herself into some of the city recorder functions that she really hasn't done since she got here. And I think we'll see the results of it as we move forward. So excited for that. We'll still have some budget savings throughout, because the position was a full-time funded and budgeted position. So we have complete vacancy savings, and then we'll have part-time vacancy savings the remainder, and then we can talk about for the next budget cycle, talk about whether it makes sense to keep it part-time or look at full-time.
Does she want full-time?
I don't know for sure. I think it's working really well right now. My initial take is I think it'd be great to even go into next budget year, maybe we budget it and appropriate it at full-time, but not fill it at full-time and see how things go. I think it might be just right, because we need coverage, we need backup. We can't, 2 just doesn't cut it. But I don't know if 3, right yet is fully necessary. When we get into full grant mode and we get into, construction grant mode, we get into some of those other things, that might be the time where we need more staffing support. But that's just my initial, show it in detailed out in the proposed budget. That's the other thing, is making sure we know how much money we have, whether or not we even can do that. If we appropriate that and we're light on funds, that means, reduction somewhere else. So I think I'd like to see it, for at least 6 months, part-time, and that works long-term as well. But we can have those conversations too. Definitely.
I love hearing this we going
I know.
into next
Did
year.
you get that
Oh,
too?
yeah.
I heard that. I'm hearing that over here.
I didn't catch that.
Just give it.
We did.
I said those were the same.
Maybe next year.
We go into preparations. Okay, so wastewater treatment plant update. Two components to that. One is, we have the RFP out. We approved that one in the first meeting in January. That was issued on January 17th after your review and approval. We held the pre-bid conference and site tour on the first. So it was a week ago Wednesday. We had two prospective bidders show up. It's really the opportunity to ask. They ask all kinds of questions that are, not contained within the RFP document, which is a standard part of the process to get a query. And we had RVSS staff here, 3 staff from RVSS, Carl, and 2 of his team, which was excellent. They were an essential part of that meeting to really help the prospective bidders understand the scope and scale, what has been done. We have all of the data dump of records from RVSS that happened for that meeting, and are now the bidders have both have that information, and only registered bidders could get that information. So there's still an opportunity for someone else to register and then be privy to all that as they prepare a bid. The request from both entities was to extend the deadline for the submittal by 1 week, and we kind of on the spot granted that. I think we're not in a position to I don't say no and have them say, well, I'm not gonna bid. So we extended 1 week. It doesn't change our ultimate final target of making sure that we have a 45 to 60 day overlap between our VSS staff and the new contractor. That's kind of the ultimate goal. We want to build everything to where, with preferably 60, but at least 45 days of a changeover transition. So that's going, I guess, to sum it up, it's going well. And I still think we've got good opportunities to have a solid replacement in place.
So what's this middle due date now?
The middle due date is the actual submittal of their proposals.
When? What's the date?
I don't have it in front of me.
Oh, it's okay.
It is, I'll email you. It is, I believe it went to March. I think it's the first week in March. I think it was the first Wednesday in March is. So we'll have that, and then so probably our next meeting is when we'll put together scoring and review committee. We'll get 1 or 2 counselors, myself, Dan Scalise, our city engineer, and excuse me, I'm going to prod a couple public works directors around the valley to see if they'll sit in with us and review public works directors that have wastewater in their realm. So I've already kind of looking how to a couple of them to give us a few hours of their time to be on our committee, let's review the proposals. And then the part B of the wastewater update is financing for the new plant. We had what's called a one-stop. That was last Friday. So we had a lot of activity last week. Last Friday. Now that is a meeting that brings together all of the various state and federal funding agencies that work in water and wastewater infrastructure funding. Business Oregon kind of coordinates it, and they also have a financing arm called the Infrastructure Finance Authority, IFA. So staff from both Business Oregon and IFA were there. Several staff. Let's see who else. There was USDA, rural, DQ, and several others that provide support to those other groups. So the point of it is to we all get around the table, talk about what we need, and Dan Scalise, our city engineer, is with me. And we outline kind of the project, and they do this, well, here's what we can offer based on that. Some of them have a combination of grant and loan, some of them have lower interest rates than others, some have a limit of, the term limit is 30 years, USDA can go longer. They can go, so they're not really apples to apples, easy comparisons of different financing types. But what they do is they put it all together in a spreadsheet, and that's what we don't have back yet. They put it all together in a spreadsheet and allow us to then look at what ones can be matched together and use multiple funding streams in components to add up to the total that we need. And doing so allows us, some allow the pre-design to be reimbursed and wrapped into a loan, some don't. So there's a lot of different reasons for saying yes or no to certain financing. It's not just the bottom line, interest rate. It's what does it get us, how long the term, what their other kind of mandates are in order to get it. Federal is more stringent. The environmental reviews for the project are heftier. Dan had planned for that and budgeted for that higher level, assuming that we would utilize rural development funding at least in part. I think that will be the case. Just don't know how much of that. So all of that is going to come back, and we'll have probably a study session. Probably that's the only agenda item, on a study session, is to really go over those financing sources, implications, a little starter conversation about what are the rate implications to be able to make those debt service payments. Because it will not all be, just going to be the bearer of bad news. It will not all be grant. We'll be looking for maximizing the grant component as much as you can. But it very unlikely it would all be grant. If we hit 50-50, that would be doing really well. So just a little hint of things to come. But that was a big step. And then that information, when it comes to me, I'll get and we'll probably bring several of the staff people to our study session so we can talk directly with Tani from Business Oregon. She's awesome, and so is Marta. They're both really good at explaining it and kind of giving the details of what it covers and what it doesn't, and why you want to consider this, and pros and cons and all that stuff. So I'll definitely want to lean on those experts. So I'll just try to coordinate a schedule that works for them and get the information. So I was originally hoping it would be our next study session here in February, but it's not. It's too optimistic. That's not going to all be back to us in time. So that, and I think on my, I corrected it on the item on the version that will go out on the website, but I think I put the meeting on February 15th, but it's the 21st. But so good. Water meter update, just to be really brief, it's probably no surprise, water meters are a challenge. They're old, really, really old, hard to read. Some aren't registering consumption at all. So there's some revenue implications, obviously, with that. We are, I've done some kind of back to napkin kind of estimates of what our revenue loss is by having meters that aren't fully functional. There's kind of 2 or 3 categories. Some are not readable because of the top lens. Some are actually broken meters. We just got, this wasn't in here, it happened today. City Road River is replacing all their meters with remote read. It's about $200,000 project, I believe. So we're going to be able to get some of their surplus meters. We had some other surplus meters, but they had some issues. So those aren't going to be utilized, but these Road River meters are certified legal, safe meters to use, and some meter boxes. So Steve Roger has been great on surplusing those to us. So that's going to help kind of give us time to kind of figure out on our water capital planning how to get meter replacement done. That's I would say it's a 1 to 3 year need. So I just wanted to pop that out there. It has some great. It captures revenue better. Obviously, it makes it accurate for all users and are getting charged consumption work right now. Not all users are getting charged for consumption they use. And remote read is the total industry standard, which means they're read within an hour or two, and there isn't any chance data entry problems. They're accurate. And it streamlines our billing system. So I'm really exploring ways to try and speed that up, and not have it be over 3 year. Performance contracting is one way that can be done. So I have some leads I'm still pursuing that's kind of on the back burner. There's some other water stuff we'll talk about in a few meetings that take precedent over this, but I just wanted to mention that so everybody knew that that's a known issue, the water meters and the age and challenges we have with consumption for the customer base. The final one is just, it's more, I think it's really fun and exciting. But it's more internal facing stuff is city operations technology updates. We've been really working hard at consolidating the different vendors that provide different pieces of our technology solutions. So I just listed off real quick, our phone system finally died. The brains that are behind that door there. We've been basing it, I've been rebooting it, pulling the chip out, putting it in, going on it like an old Nintendo, game, and put it back in, and it would reboot, it would work. And it finally, that trick finally stopped working. So we have a hosted PBX system. So we basically just pay the vendor, and we don't have to worry about if anything breaks. It's the vendor, always no fee, no charge. So I think we have kind of this redundancy that the units are better, allows all the kind of more normal modern office phone system at a reduced cost. And it will be with our vendor that also is our, they're going to move to fiber here. I skipped number 4, but number 1 and number 4 are tied together. Full fiber connection here, which will increase our speed, give better Wi-Fi for the building, and get point-to-point Wi-Fi down to the shop that we don't have now, and be cheaper. And again, consolidate vendors. So we're using the same vendors. And one email I told you about, or I emailed you all earlier today because we inadvertently got. I'm not sure how I got that one in there when we were just working on getting migration of the email accounts off of a local provider, again, that providing only a subset of our technology solutions, moving all that over to a fully hosted with Vision, who's our software provider and our hardware provider here, and our network manager. So the email system will all be embedded there with our full Office 365 licensing. So you guys will you'll have better tools. And as I said early on when I got here, that also gives us the ability to not use personal email accounts anymore. But I knew we didn't have the tools yet to kind of put the hammer down on personal emails or counselors, but that because it was not working well. But this within the week, end of this week, start of next week, you'll get email about, and we'll send those obviously to personal to be able to set up your city issued emails, and then you'll be able to really get onto them on your phone just like normal, and not have this weird system that we're using. So excited for all that. It's actually a lot of hassle behind the scenes. It takes always longer than I want it to take, but the alarm system is another one. We have some security issues that we identified, and we're at least knowing about the services that we have, how much they're costing us, and how useful they are. So maybe a little more to come on that, but the water plant needs some attention. And it's alluded to or spoken to earlier tonight, and we'll be doing some work there with probably a combination of lighting and utilizing the existing camera system, but utilizing it better. So yeah, a lot of you talking. So is there any questions on any of those or anything else? I kind of I'd love for the city manager report to be interactive as much as you all want it to be on the issues I bring up. And if there's others that are that I can't answer here, if I can't answer them here, I can jot them down and bring them back to a whole group later or offline too. So,
Councilors?
Do we have a plan to replace the water lines, or are we just gonna keep patching them? The old pipe?
that's going to be part of that capital improvements plan conversation. So yes, we have a priority order to the various capital needs in the water system. The plant is the most critical. I'll be bringing that probably 2 meetings from now. just had a meeting out on site. I think I mentioned Oregon Health Authority did their 3-year review on our system in November. We got the report right around Christmas time. We're due to provide a response to that tomorrow. And part of that will necessitate some expenditures. So that obviously regulatory stuff jumps in line over the things that we have some ability to kind of set our own schedules for. But the water line that we were down there together a few weeks ago, you are absolutely right. That one is a problem, and that's not a cheap one. But yes, the main trunk lines, we definitely have several water sections that need to be done, and those are not cheap. So we have a lot of water related capital. It doesn't rise to the total cost of the new wastewater plant, but it is not inconsequential in its cost either. So that can come kind of in combination with the capital improvements discussion and the rates discussion.
So I was just wondering about financial reports. Will we be seeing regular financial reports pretty soon?
Yeah, I think I might have overpromised. I thought we'd be further along when I first was saying how when we'd be able to get you the quarterly financials that councils and boards typically are accustomed to and should get. The status on that is 2 weeks ago, I met with the auditors on site. They were here all day, actually sat here, they brought all their equipment in and worked all day here. And we developed, the main auditor and myself developed a strategy. What doesn't do any good is to provide financials now because the audits are 2 years behind, which then means that the fund balances, I know what our total money, I know what that is. That's not an issue. It's how it's allocated to the various funds. How much of that total money is in the general fund, water fund, wastewater fund, in the various buckets, required separate buckets. And so that's the strategy that the auditor and I are putting together, is doing the annual reconciliations of both years, each year kind of concurrently, and then looking at kind of major expenditure categories within each fund, and then do some kind of educated estimating that is passable by the state legally to come up with any fund balances. And we really need to do that before the budget. I can't present you a proposed budget without knowing what the estimated carry forwards are in each of those funds. I can do a lot of the budget prep, but I can't finalize the budget without that. So I'm hoping we are about 8 weeks out from having the auditors complete that estimating. It's probably 6 or 8 weeks for them to do that, and then a couple of weeks for the auditor and myself to wrestle with, the methodology and how we land, where we land on the various funds. After that, we will then be able to give you quarterly financials that are meaningful. And that'll probably be kind of parallel budget process. So we'll definitely, we'll have them for the 3rd and 4th quarter of this current fiscal year we're in. You may get the 3rd and 4th quarter together. So which means closer to June. Well, the 4th quarter won't get until July, but the 3rd quarter might be later than we would normally otherwise do it. The goal long term is to have your quarterly financials presented a month after the quarter ends. So the first meeting the month after. So the quarter ends, if the quarter ends October or September 30th, we would be looking at those the first meeting of November. Packet presented, so it gives us that time to close the quarter, do all that stuff. So that's the cadence that we'd like to get to, because it's the meeting the month after that quarter closes. We're not there yet, but super important, and you all need to see it, community needs to see it, and we're working hard to put them there in an organized way.
Wow, your experience definitely shines through in your detailed answers.
At least we got an actual
Yeah,
answer as to
yeah.
why we don't do it.
Well, I feel bad we don't have them yet. I thought we would be further along, but it is what it is.
All right, council, anything else? All right, this meeting is adjourned. Need your
Yeah, so we just, let me stop this recording real quick.
Yeah.